What if the most devastating betrayal you could imagine wasn't just emotional, but one with life-altering consequences? In this shocking true crime story, an affair leads to devastating revelations and a courtroom battle that would send shockwaves through the medical community, and a family forever changed. Stay with me until the end, because this story has a twist you won't see coming. It's 2020, in the picturesque town of Charleston, South Carolina, a place where life moves a little slower, and the cobblestone streets are lined with centuries-old homes that hold countless stories. The town's historic charm and tranquil beauty paint a picture of serenity, but no town, no matter how perfect it looks, is immune to secrets. Behind the polished doors of one particular home, a storm was brewing, a storm that would unravel lives and shock an entire community. Victoria Parker was a woman admired by many. At 34, she was an emergency room nurse at Charleston General Hospital, known for her empathy and her ability to handle even the most intense situations with grace. She had spent years building a reputation as a reliable and dedicated healthcare worker, someone her colleagues looked up to and patients trusted, without question. Her husband, Michael Parker, was equally accomplished. At 38, he was a financial analyst whose sharp mind and work ethic had propelled him to success. At home, Michael was the steady rock of their marriage. He was a family man who valued loyalty and honesty above all else. To their friends and neighbors, Michael and Victoria were the perfect couple. Their marriage seemed unshakable, a partnership built on mutual respect and shared dreams. But appearances can be deceiving. It all started innocently enough, or so it seemed. In the spring of 2020, Dr. Emma Collins joined the team at Charleston General Hospital. Emma was a rising star in the medical field, a highly skilled physician with a confident demeanor and a magnetic personality. She had an uncanny ability to connect with people, whether they were patients, colleagues, or strangers. Her presence lit up a room, and it wasn't long before she became a respected member of the hospital staff. Victoria and Emma's paths crossed almost immediately. Working together in the high-stress environment of the ER, they bonded over long shifts and the shared challenges of their demanding jobs. At first, their relationship seemed purely professional, a natural friendship between two colleagues. But as the weeks turned into months, their connection deepened in ways that went unnoticed by most of their peers. At home, Michael started to notice small changes in Victoria. She seemed distracted, often preoccupied with thoughts she wouldn't share. She began picking up extra night shifts, something she explained away as a necessity due to understaffing. Michael, always supportive, didn't question her too much. He trusted his wife, believing her long hours were a testament to her dedication to her job. But what Michael didn't know was that Victoria's long hours weren't just about work. She was spending more and more time with Emma, finding comfort in her company, and eventually, something far more dangerous. Dr. Emma Collins carried a secret that no one at Charleston General knew. Years earlier, she had been diagnosed with HIV. While she was on antiretroviral therapy and her viral load was considered undetectable, Emma hadn't disclosed her status to anyone, not her colleagues, not her friends, and certainly not Victoria. To Emma, her condition felt like a deeply personal matter, one she convinced herself she didn't need to share. What began as late-night conversations during quiet moments in the ER soon escalated into something more. Their connection moved beyond friendship, fueled by moments of vulnerability and stolen glances. It wasn't long before Victoria and Emma crossed a line, starting an affair that would forever change the course of their lives. The Parker household, once filled with love and laughter, was now the backdrop of suspicion and unease. Michael couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Victoria was distant in ways he couldn't explain. Their conversations became shorter, their once active social life dwindled, and Michael found himself alone more often than not. Still, Michael didn't suspect the truth. He didn't know that his wife was leading a double life, caught in a web of lies and secrets. But the truth, as it always does, was about to come out, and when it did, it would leave destruction in its wake. They seemed like the perfect family, but in Charleston, South Carolina, perfection was just an illusion. Behind the serene facade of their lives was a betrayal so devastating that it would send shockwaves through their marriage, their community, and beyond. Stay with us as we uncover the chilling details of how a love triangle turned into a case of life-altering betrayal, medical ethics violations, and a courtroom battle that would leave everyone asking, how did it all go so wrong? As spring turned into summer in Charleston, the Parker household began to feel different. It wasn't something Michael Parker could quite put his finger on at first. Victoria, his wife of 8 years, had always been the steady presence in their home. She was someone who could balance the chaos of an emergency room with the tranquility of their family life. But something had changed. Victoria had started working more night shifts, explaining it was because the hospital was understaffed. This wasn't unusual for a nurse. Healthcare was demanding, after all. But the frequency of these shifts was becoming concerning. What used to be an occasional sacrifice had turned into a regular occurrence. Michael didn't complain. He admired her dedication to her career and the patients she cared for. But then there were the subtle signs. Victoria became more distant at home. She was often lost in thought, her focus somewhere far away from their dinner table. Conversations that used to flow effortlessly now felt strained. Michael would ask about her day, and she would respond with curt answers, brushing him off with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Michael thought it was the job. The stress of working in an ER was immense, especially during that time. Long hours, difficult cases, and the weight of life and death decisions could take a toll on anyone. He told himself that she just needed space, that things would go back to normal when the hospital's staffing crisis eased. But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something else going on. Something she wasn't telling him. The unexplained changes didn't stop there. Victoria had always been meticulous about her routine, but now there were odd inconsistencies. Her phone, which she used to leave casually on the kitchen counter, was now always with her. She started keeping it face down, and Michael noticed she was quick to grab it when it buzzed. One evening, while Victoria was in the shower, Michael saw her phone light up. A message from someone named Emma popped up on the screen. It wasn't unusual for Victoria to get texts from colleagues, but this one caught his attention. The message read, "Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you." Michael's heart sank. He wasn't the type to snoop, but the text left him reeling. Against his better judgment, he unlocked her phone and started scrolling. The thread between Victoria and Emma was a mix of work messages and something much more personal. There were inside jokes, late-night conversations, and messages that hinted at shared moments outside of the hospital. When Victoria came back into the room, Michael confronted her. She froze, the color draining from her face as she saw her phone in his hand. But she quickly composed herself, brushing it off as a misunderstanding. "It's nothing, Michael," she said, forcing a laugh. "Emma's just a friend from work. We've been spending a lot of time together during shifts. You know how it is. We're like a team in there." That's all. Michael wanted to believe her. He wanted to believe that the woman he loved, the woman he had built a life with, was telling the truth. But the unease in his gut refused to go away. Over the next few weeks, Michael found himself questioning everything. Was it just work stress? Could it be a midlife crisis? Or was it something more sinister? Victoria's behavior only fueled his suspicions. She seemed guarded, her once open and warm demeanor replaced with an almost calculated reserve. Her night shifts became more frequent, and she started coming home later and later, claiming she was staying to help with extra cases. But Michael couldn't ignore the growing gap between them. The intimacy they once shared was gone. Their conversations felt hollow, their connection frayed. What Michael didn't know was that Victoria was hiding a secret, one that would eventually destroy their lives. The name Emma Collins wasn't just a colleague. She was a presence that had slowly but surely taken over Victoria's world. The Parker marriage, which had once seemed so solid, was now standing on a foundation of lies and half-truths. Michael could feel the cracks forming, but he couldn't yet see the full picture. He didn't know that his wife's double life was about to come crashing down, and when it did, it would bring consequences far beyond anything he could have imagined. Stay tuned as we dive deeper into the unraveling of Victoria Parker's secrets and the devastating fallout that would turn a love story into a cautionary tale. As summer faded into fall, Victoria Parker's life began to take a toll on her in ways she couldn't ignore. At first, it was subtle. A constant fatigue that she chalked up to long shifts at the hospital. She had been burning the candle at both ends for months, working nights, and spending her days catching up on tasks at home. It was exhausting, but that was the life of an ER nurse, she told herself. Then came the fevers. At first, they seemed mild, easily dismissed as the result of exhaustion or a mild seasonal illness. But the symptoms persisted. Night after night, she would wake up drenched in sweat, her heart racing, her body aching. By the time the headaches began, Victoria knew this wasn't just stress. Something was wrong. Still, she hesitated to see a doctor. For weeks, she ignored her worsening condition, convincing herself it would go away on its own. She couldn't bear to take time off from work, and deep down, she was afraid of what the tests might reveal. Eventually, the symptoms became impossible to ignore. Her energy was depleted, and even simple tasks like climbing the stairs in her home left her breathless. Reluctantly, she scheduled an appointment with her primary care physician. She told herself it was just routine, that it couldn't be anything serious. The visit began as any other: a review of her symptoms, a physical examination, and a standard blood draw. But when the results came back, they revealed something that would change Victoria's life forever. "Victoria," the doctor began, her voice gentle but firm, "your test results indicate that you're HIV positive." The words hit Victoria like a physical blow. In an instant, her mind raced through every possibility, every moment that could have led to this diagnosis. She felt the walls closing in around her as the doctor explained the next steps: antiretroviral therapy, regular checkups, and the importance of managing her condition. But none of that registered. All Victoria could think about was where the virus had come from. She knew the answer immediately, though she didn't want to admit it. The truth was as undeniable as it was horrifying. The virus hadn't come from her husband, Michael, who had always been faithful. It had come from Dr. Emma Collins, her colleague, and the woman she had been secretly seeing for months. The guilt was overwhelming. Victoria sat in her car outside the doctor's office, her hands gripping the steering wheel, tears streaming down her face. She couldn't hide this from Michael. Not the affair, not the diagnosis, not the risk she had put him in without his knowledge. That evening, Victoria walked into their home, her legs heavy with dread. Michael was in the kitchen, preparing one of his favorite meals, completely unaware of the bombshell about to drop. "Michael," she began, her voice trembling. "We need to talk." What followed was a confession that shattered their marriage in an instant. Victoria admitted to the affair with Emma, her diagnosis, and the horrifying possibility that she might have exposed Michael to the virus. As she spoke, Michael's face went through a series of emotions: shock, confusion, and then anger. "You've been lying to me this whole time?" he demanded, his voice rising. "And now you're telling me I might have HIV because of your affair?" Michael stumbled backward, his hands gripping the counter for support. He couldn't process the betrayal, the risk, or the fact that the woman he had trusted most in the world had been living a double life. The next morning, Michael underwent his own round of testing. The waiting period for the results was agonizing, and though his initial test came back negative, he was told he would need follow-up tests for 6 months to be sure. The fear of the unknown consumed him. Meanwhile, Victoria's diagnosis raised another alarming question. Why hadn't Emma told her? The answer lay in a secret Emma had been keeping for years. Long before her affair with Victoria, Emma had been diagnosed with HIV. She had started treatment immediately and maintained an undetectable viral load, which made the risk of transmission extremely low. But despite her medical knowledge, Emma had chosen not to disclose her status to Victoria or to anyone else she had been involved with. To Emma, her undetectable status meant she wasn't putting anyone at risk. She had convinced herself that disclosure wasn't necessary, that it would only bring stigma and judgment into her life. But this belief ignored the ethical responsibility she had, not only as a partner, but as a medical professional. Victoria now understood the depth of Emma's betrayal. This wasn't just about an affair. It was about being deliberately kept in the dark about a risk that could have been avoided. The anger and hurt consumed her as she began piecing together the timeline of events, realizing how deeply she had been deceived. Michael, too, struggled to comprehend the situation. The betrayal wasn't just Victoria's. It was Emma's as well. Both women had broken his trust. But Emma's actions carried legal and ethical implications that went far beyond personal betrayal. As the truth came to light, the cracks in their lives widened. The Parker family was no longer a picture of stability and love. It was a house of cards, brought down by secrets, lies, and the devastating consequences of one person's decision to withhold the truth. But the fallout was only beginning. What had started as a personal crisis would soon turn into a public scandal, drawing in the hospital, the legal system, and an entire community. The twist in this story wasn't just the diagnosis or the affair. It was the ripple effect that would follow, leaving no one untouched. Stay with us as we unravel the next chapter of this shocking case, where justice, betrayal, and ethics collide in ways no one could have anticipated. The storm that had begun inside the Parker household was now spilling into the public sphere. After discovering that his wife Victoria had not only been unfaithful, but had also contracted HIV from her secret lover, Dr. Emma Collins, Michael Parker was left grappling with anger, betrayal, and fear. However, his outrage wasn't directed solely at Victoria. The deeper violation came from Emma, whose deliberate decision to withhold her HIV status from Victoria crossed a line Michael couldn't ignore. Michael filed a police report, claiming that Emma's failure to disclose her condition put both Victoria and, indirectly, himself at risk. The report marked the beginning of an investigation that would uncover a chilling pattern of behavior and lead to legal consequences far more severe than anyone could have imagined. Detective Rachel Monroe of the Charleston Police Department took the lead on the case. A seasoned investigator, Detective Monroe was no stranger to complex cases involving personal betrayal and legal gray areas. As she began interviewing Victoria and reviewing the evidence, it became clear that Emma's actions weren't merely an oversight. They were part of a calculated pattern. Victoria provided the detectives with a detailed account of her relationship with Emma. She described how their connection had started innocently, as two colleagues bonding over the challenges of their demanding jobs. Over time, their relationship deepened into a romantic affair, one that Victoria entered into without knowing Emma's secrets. She also shared text messages and emails between them, none of which mentioned Emma's HIV status. The detectives dug deeper into Emma's past, and what they found was alarming. Emma had relocated to Charleston from Atlanta just 2 years earlier. While in Atlanta, she had been involved in at least 2 other relationships, both of which ended under suspicious circumstances. In both cases, her partners, also women, later learned that Emma had withheld her HIV status from them. Neither of these women contracted the virus, but their experiences painted a disturbing picture of Emma's repeated deception. When detectives contacted one of these women, Sarah Johnson, she recounted her relationship with Emma in painful detail. Sarah described how Emma had gained her trust by presenting herself as a caring and knowledgeable partner. "She was a doctor," Sarah said. "I trusted her completely. I never imagined she would keep something so important from me." Another former partner, Michelle Carter, shared a similar story. She revealed that Emma's charm and confidence had initially drawn her in, but when she discovered Emma's secret after their relationship ended, she felt deeply betrayed. "It wasn't just about the virus," Michelle explained. "It was about the lies, the manipulation, and the way she made me feel safe when I wasn't." Armed with these testimonies, Detective Monroe built a case against Emma, focusing on her failure to disclose her HIV status as a form of reckless endangerment. The investigation also revealed gaps in Emma's adherence to her antiretroviral therapy. Medical records showed that while Emma's viral load had been undetectable at certain points, she had missed doses of her medication during her affair with Victoria, increasing the risk of transmission. The evidence was damning, and in November 2020, Emma was arrested and charged with reckless endangerment and assault. Her arrest sent shockwaves through Charleston General Hospital, where she had been a respected physician. The administration placed her on immediate suspension, pending the outcome of the legal proceedings. The trial began in early 2021, and it quickly became a media sensation. Reporters flocked to the courthouse, drawn by the salacious details of the case: a love triangle, a hidden diagnosis, and a betrayal that had spiraled into a criminal investigation. The courtroom was packed with onlookers, many of them healthcare professionals, grappling with the ethical questions raised by the case. The prosecution, led by Assistant District Attorney Laura Grant, framed Emma's actions as a gross violation of trust and responsibility. ADA Grant argued that Emma's medical knowledge made her deception even more egregious. As a physician, Dr. Collins had an ethical obligation to disclose her condition, Grant told the jury. She knew the risks, and she chose to conceal the truth, putting multiple lives in jeopardy. Victoria took the stand to testify against Emma, her voice trembling as she recounted the affair and its devastating aftermath. She described how Emma had gained her trust, only to shatter it in the most profound way. "She knew exactly what she was doing," Victoria said, tears streaming down her face. "She told me she cared about me, but she hid the one thing that could have protected me." Michael also testified, his anger barely contained as he spoke about the impact of Emma's actions on his life. "This wasn't just about Victoria," he said. "It was about my safety too. Emma's choices didn't just affect one person. They rippled through our entire family." The defense, led by attorney Richard Bowen, attempted to downplay Emma's responsibility. Bowen argued that Emma's undetectable viral load made the risk of transmission negligible, and that her actions, while misguided, were not criminal. Dr. Collins made a mistake, Bowen said, but there was no malicious intent. She believed she was not a danger to anyone. However, the prosecution countered with testimony from medical experts, who explained the importance of consistent medication adherence in maintaining an undetectable viral load. Dr. Patricia Green, an infectious disease specialist, testified that even brief lapses in medication could lead to a spike in viral load, significantly increasing the risk of transmission. The jury deliberated for 2 days before delivering their verdict: guilty on all counts. Emma was sentenced to 7 years in prison. Her medical license was revoked, and she was ordered to pay restitution to Victoria. For Victoria and Michael, the verdict was a bittersweet victory. While it brought a sense of justice, it couldn't undo the damage that had been done. Their trust, their marriage, and their sense of security had been shattered. The betrayal ran deeper than the affair. It was about safety, honesty, and the right to make informed choices about one's health. The Parker case became a flashpoint for discussions about medical ethics, HIV disclosure laws, and the balance between privacy and responsibility. For Victoria and Michael, it marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of a long journey toward healing. But as they both came to learn, some wounds leave scars that never fully fade. The fallout from the revelations surrounding Victoria Parker, Michael Parker, and Dr. Emma Collins was as profound as it was devastating. It rippled through their lives, reshaping their identities, their future, and their understanding of trust. For Michael, the immediate concern was his health. Though his initial HIV test came back negative, the fear wasn't over. Doctors informed him that he would need follow-up tests for 6 months to confirm his status definitively. Each visit to the clinic brought waves of anxiety. The thought of possibly living with a life-altering diagnosis weighed heavily on him, compounded by the betrayal he felt from the 2 women who had altered his life. While the results continued to come back negative, the emotional scars were harder to heal. Michael struggled with feelings of anger, humiliation, and profound sadness. For Victoria, the consequences were just as heavy. Her diagnosis forced her to confront the reality of her choices. The shame of betraying her husband was compounded by the stigma she felt surrounding her HIV status. She started antiretroviral therapy immediately, and over time, her viral load became undetectable. But the physical recovery was only part of the journey. Victoria sought intensive therapy to help her process the guilt, the end of her marriage, and the complex emotions tied to her relationship with Emma. She joined a support group for healthcare workers living with HIV, finding solace in the shared experiences of others who understood her struggles. Slowly, she began rebuilding her life. But the road ahead was long and uncertain. The Parker family was left to pick up the pieces of their shattered lives. Michael and Victoria decided to divorce, a decision made with mutual respect and understanding. They realized that their marriage, while once filled with love, could not survive the weight of betrayal and the emotional toll of the past year. Despite their separation, both Michael and Victoria were determined to find meaning in their experiences. Michael became an advocate for HIV awareness, speaking at community events and schools about the importance of education and testing. His message was clear: the stigma surrounding HIV often prevents people from seeking the help they need, and honest conversations are critical for breaking down those barriers. Victoria, too, found a new sense of purpose. She began working with organizations that supported healthcare workers living with chronic illnesses, using her story to encourage others to seek treatment and embrace their lives with hope and dignity. Her efforts were particularly focused on addressing the stigma within the healthcare profession, where many still feared discrimination or judgment. The Parker family's story didn't end with a fairy tale reconciliation. Instead, it became a powerful example of resilience and growth. Their marriage didn't survive, but the lessons they learned from their pain became a catalyst for change. Their experiences shed light on the importance of accountability, transparency, and compassion, not just in personal relationships, but in society as a whole. Emma's case also led to significant changes in the medical community. Hospitals across the country began implementing stricter policies regarding HIV disclosure for healthcare workers involved in invasive procedures. Medical ethics courses added new case studies on the intersection of privacy and responsibility, ensuring that future generations of healthcare professionals learned from Emma's mistakes. For Michael and Victoria, life moved forward in separate but meaningful directions. Michael continued his work as a financial analyst, but he also found fulfillment in mentoring young professionals and advocating for HIV awareness. Victoria relocated to a different hospital, where she started fresh and focused on supporting her patients and colleagues. Their story, though painful, became a beacon for others navigating similar challenges. It reminded people that even in the face of betrayal and loss, there is room for growth, healing, and transformation. As Victoria once said in an interview with a support group, "We can't change the past, but we can decide what we do with it." For me, that means helping others and making sure no one feels as alone as I once did. Michael, too, reflected on his journey, saying, "I've learned that forgiveness isn't about letting someone off the hook. It's about freeing yourself from the pain they caused. I'll always carry what happened with me, but I refuse to let it define who I am." The Parker family's story is a testament to the complexities of human relationships, the weight of our choices, and the power of redemption. It's a story that continues to resonate, not just because of its shocking twists and turns, but because it speaks to something universal: our ability to endure, to grow, and to find hope in the face of unimaginable adversity. This case is a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of deception, not just in love, but in life itself. The story of Michael and Victoria Parker, and the role Dr. Emma Collins played in their unraveling, is a cautionary tale about the critical importance of honesty, transparency, and ethical responsibility. At its core, it's not only a story of betrayal, but one that raises profound questions about trust and the balance between personal privacy and public safety. Emma's failure to disclose her HIV status set off a chain reaction that impacted not just Victoria and Michael, but also the broader community and the medical profession as a whole. It forced a reckoning about the responsibilities we owe to those who trust us, whether as partners, professionals, or friends. But this case also sheds light on the human capacity for resilience. Despite the pain and loss, both Michael and Victoria found ways to turn their suffering into purpose. Their courage to share their experiences opened the door for critical conversations about HIV awareness, disclosure laws, and the importance of breaking down stigma. Now let me ask you, should HIV disclosure laws be stricter to ensure safety? Or do they already place an unfair burden on individuals living with the condition? Where do we draw the line between personal privacy and the right to informed consent? I want to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below. If you found this story compelling and want to hear more gripping true crime documentaries, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Your support helps us uncover and share these powerful stories, shining a light on the truths that can so often remain hidden. And remember, no matter how deeply it's buried, the truth always has a way of coming to light. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next story.